Alright, here we are with the first of these series of the Technics SL-5. Now, one thing I want to cover actually is about getting this panel off. Now obviously I've already done this, but just a quick explanation. There's a couple of screws here, and then under here is another little like plastic push pin. And this piece in particular causes a lot of problems because if you don't get it back sitting flush and nice when you put it back together, it won't activate this little lever here, and so what will happen is you'll have a full-size record on there, and instead of giving resistance here, you can hear there's like a little micro switch in there somewhere. There you go. What it'll do is it'll send the the sled right up until, you know, basically the singles position, so it won't play a full LP, so it'll go in the wrong spot. So it's a bit fiddly for who knows what reason, but if these bits don't all catch in the right spot, and as you can see here, there's a bit of a ridge along here, and these need to sit on the right side of this piece of metal framing, and if they don't, they will foul, and you actually won't even be able to close the lid properly. It just won't sit flush. So if that's the problem, then it means that you haven't put this back together correctly. Now obviously why we need to get this cover apart is that we actually need to get to this these two pulleys here so that we can replace the belt. Now I've already taken the belt off because it was in poor condition. I haven't cleaned these rollers yet, these pulleys, but that's you know, a job to do. And obviously this is what controls the advance of the sled. So I mean, you can do it quite slowly by hand, and you can see it's going backwards, and this will start pulling it in, and it moves, you know, pretty slow. In normal use, what it will do is it will just advance a little bit. I'm not exactly sure for how long, but you'll actually hear it. It'll go root, root. It'll just move ever so slightly, and then just as this sort of swings across, it'll play, and then there's a couple of you know, opto sensors in there. Basically what happens is once so you've got like your gap here, you've got like a LED here, and then the sensor here, and then you've got a part that clicks in, and once it gets that, it gets the advanced signal, and it'll move the sled across, and then it'll just move across as it plays through the groove, and then it'll just keep doing that. So that's how basically it works. So if you've got problems with advancing and stuff like that, then it's got usually something to do with in here, virtually nothing to do with what's underneath. And the second thing I want to mention is that when you undo this to get to, you know, what's in here, and I can tell you already that I know that you know, I've got the same broken plastic issues that I had on my other SL-5, which I've actually got repaired, and that is my main player. Once you undo these screws, you can basically you got to set yourself down that you're going to end up having to do a full calibration of the gain for the what do you call it, for the servo gain, sorry, which actually, you know, works out how much it's going to move at what point and all that sort of stuff. And if you don't do that, it's just not going to work properly. That's the fiddly procedure that I went through in another video. I'm going to get to that, and we're going to do the whole thing, I think, a little bit more together. We'll get into more things. And I mean, I skipped a lot for that just because, you know, I just went ahead and did it. But I've had so many questions about it that we're going to do like a pretty full-on set of videos on this particular player. Hopefully that means that most of your questions are actually answered, or I'm going to get more questions. I'm not really sure, but hopefully it's actually going to answer more questions than it raises. So anyway, we'll go slowly. But yeah, so you do need to be careful. Once you open this up to fix it, you're going to have to set the servo gain, which is a fiddly whatever procedure. But at the same time, with these broken plastics and things in there as well, if they don't work, then you're always going to have this sloppiness in there. It's going to be too sloppy. It won't necessarily get to the end of the record, because as it advances, at some point, you know, that plastic is going to move, and then, you know, the position of the arm won't actually be in the right spot anymore. And of course, that can happen at the beginning as well, where it then drops the needle on the outside of the record, and then it's really not going to play at all. So you really got no choice here. If you want to repair this properly, that's what you got to do. Just set yourself down for it's fiddly. It can seem like it's going to go very badly, but if you're careful and you approach it fairly sensibly, I think you're going to be okay. One thing I've noticed, I've repaired a few Technics things now. Obviously, I'm in the home of Technics. Generally, their solid state ICs and things like that are pretty robust. I've never actually had any Technics thing that I couldn't at least get running again. I pulled one actually out of the garbage, and this was a long time ago. I don't know if I put the video up on that. But I pulled one out of the garbage. It was completely seized. I did get the motor to work, but I could never get it actually real stable running. I ended up just, I got kind of sick of that one. I did whatever I could, but I ended up just selling it as parts for someone else, and they happily bought it for like $7 or whatever I charged for that. So anyway, that was but it sort of proves the point that basically everything still works. So probably now I would probably have better success at actually getting that going, because I have a feeling that there was just one trim pot that I didn't properly clean, and that was probably the problem with that. But anyway, benefit experience and hindsight and all the rest of it. So anyway, we'll get to this, and I think you'll be surprised that although it's fiddly, there's actually not so much to it. Again, these use old Matsushita capacitors, which go bad. Replace them all. It's people can debate all day long whether that's bad diagnostics or it's not good procedure. No, just get rid of them, because they're bloody 40 years old. They're stuffed. Get rid of them, and then you can go on to do all your nice diagnostics. It's kind of crazy to me that things that people know fail, and they do fail, and they're all gone. People want to persist and then go and do their diagnostics with them in situ. I mean, no electronic engineer is saying, leave them in. No, they're saying replace them and then do your investigations. What else might be wrong? It just puzzles my mind how you could think that it's going to work correctly, or how you're going to come to the right conclusions when you've got these known bad parts in there. Just replace them. There's not many in this. I think there's maybe like half a dozen. Underneath there's one in there. Okay, that's it. That's all you've got to do. Not hard. Doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, I drove past the Nichicon factory when I went skiing last week. So, I get them cheap. You maybe don't get them so cheap, but the thing is, they're cheap. I mean, these SL-5s go for good money still. Just replace the bloody things, and save your energy for the diagnostics you need to do, not trying to track down things that maybe don't work because capacitor is stuffed. Replace them. So not even an argument, not even a debate. I don't care what anyone else thinks about that. That's my advice. So anyway, once we get there, I think you'll find that these aren't particularly hard. Fiddly, definitely. If some other issue presents itself, well, maybe that will throw a surprise in my way. I have tested this, and it does work. Like, it will start playing and all that sort of stuff. As you can see, I've just put this on here just to, well, actually, that was part of my little Arduino speed control check out light thing. Anyway, so I can happily say it works, and it runs a nice stable speed. There's no issues there. other thing to mention is I actually can still get brand new original Technics cartridges for these, so they're getting a bit harder to find, but you know, they still pop up from time to time, and there's plenty of aftermarket still available, so it's just not an issue. So I think these are worth your time. If you've got one and you want to fix it, it's worth it.
Radio Blitz.